Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Get ready for Talking Heads, the show where expert insights meet world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Brought to you by USA Global TV and Radio. Meet our distinguished presenters. From the great state of Texas, longevity expert, award-winning author, publisher, and distinguished Toastmaster, Red O'Loughlin. From London, England, soul heart awakener, novelist, vocal coach, and artist, Dr. Madeline Chan. Also from England, the Harley Street stress expert, therapist, ambassador for peace, and speaker, Carolyn Heward. And from Australia, ICF PCC credentialed coach, entrepreneur, and leadership coach, Mariska Dupria. Experience their expertise, connect with their wisdom, and transform your perspective. Watch Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. This video and its contents are the property of USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. Visit usaglobaltv.com for more details.
Howdy all, Red O'Loughlin here. We're on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And this is a different show. Normally I talk about some aspect of health and wellness. I may talk about it for a fairly long time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Late last year, I changed over to what would I do in the event I found out I had cancer or some other malady. But I decided that today is going to be a special show. And I'm going to talk a little bit about me and talk basically to my daughter. So let me bring her out and then we'll begin the show. Michelle, please join me.
Howdy.
This is my number one, firstborn, one of two. My son is the fourth, and he's working in Virginia today. I just got back from a trip overseas. But anyway, my daughter's here in Texas with us, and we're going to get into a little bit of discussion on life and health. And so I'm just going to kind of pick it up, and she can follow my lead. Me, got married a long time ago, 57 years, I think now, coming up. And the, I guess, first traumatic part of my life was toward the end of college. I got an invitation to join the Army. Well, if I had joined the Navy ahead of time, I wouldn't have to take the Army's invitation and ended up in Vietnam. So I joined the Navy and ended up in Vietnam. I was a naval flight officer, flew in P-3s, about 16 years, spent a total of 4.5 on active duty, 20 in the reserves, and another 6+ on active duty. And in the meantime, I'm the oldest of 9 kids, got 5 degrees, a bunch of professional certifications, traveled to 61 countries. I love chemistry. I love researching the human body at the cellular level. You can find me on my website, redolaughlin.com. And the things that I guess help as you grow older is you see your kids grow. You know, so we follow them. They end up getting married, having their families, and then just recently, my daughter became a grandma. Believe it or not, that young thing sitting there is a grandmother, and so it is. But
How about young or old?
So anyway, that's kind of who I am. I love to cook. I really and truly enjoy it. I love to garden, read. I write a lot. I'm writing 2 books right now. I've written 8, I think, total. So those are kind of things that I do and have done, and we'll bring those back. So I'm going to let my daughter talk a little bit about things that she's done, what's been her life, so that as we kind of get back and forth, we just have a nice conversation and kind of go from there. So, Michelle, take it away.
Well, when I graduated from high school, I went to Sam Houston State. I earned a degree in law enforcement police science. I ended up getting married, had 2 kids. And then I went in and actually started law enforcement career. I started as a correctional officer with Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And that didn't fulfill needs, so I ended up trying different things. I ended up with San Jacinto County Sheriff's Office with Sheriff Capers, who is a wonderful man, by the way, and a great boss. He offered me an opportunity to be a jailer, a deputy, and then a detective. And when his term ended, I ended my term.
And she's on the cusp of a new job almost as we're speaking. They're in the final processes of the process they go through. But when I was a 5-year-old, I wanted to be a cowboy because that's all I ever watched on TV was westerns. My daughter, when she was 5 years old, wanted to be a police officer. I don't know why. Was there a reason why, or just that was something that intrigued you?
It was something that I felt like it was a calling. And then you watch different shows on TV, and yeah, that's what I wanted to do. There was policewoman, so I knew that my gender wouldn't stop me. And then there was TJ Hooker, and just confirmed everything I wanted. The one thing I do want to emphasize is that you're never too old to achieve your goals.
Yeah, you went to police academy here in Houston, and you were by far the oldest member of that class.
I was the oldest graduate of the class. I was the mom of the class.
And it's interesting, when you're in your first degree program, and this happens to me and almost everybody I know, somebody else is paying the bill. You're there. You're really not sure what you want. You kind of think you're in there. I wanted to be a chemist. World situation, Lyndon Johnson did away with the national defense exemption. So all of a sudden, my safety net wasn't there. I had to pretty much make a decision. And kind of for you, my daughter had been a correctional officer for about 12, 14 years, something like that.
13 years.
And she wanted to be a peace officer, which requires classes and certification and passing and all sorts of stuff. And so it's, when you do it on your own, all of a sudden it's different. Her approach the second time around was totally different, just like my second and third and fourth degree. All of those, I want to learn, I want to do this, as opposed to this, I don't know what I want. This is kind of what makes sense right now. But a couple of things I do want to highlight, one out of your correctional career, and that is ghosts.
You always want to talk about that one. There are ghost stories along the TDC, jails. It doesn't matter. Correctional type facilities, you're always going to have ghost stories. There's a number of them. One that comes off the top of my head was I was a seg sergeant at the time. I had my officers up on 3-row, and they saw an inmate out on the run, which this is 2:00 in the morning, so there shouldn't be anybody because there's no doors that were rolled. And when they went down to confront the offender, inmate disappeared. And they came down, and Thompson was white as a ghost. And I asked him what happened. He told me everything, and we just discussed it. And that way everything calmed down. And I didn't have him on 23 for a while, but you roll with the flow. There's countless other ghost stories that I can tell you. Actually, it could probably take a whole show of ghost stories that I've been told about.
What about George, him wanting to touch your hair?
That I was working in a picket, and I kept my hair was in a bun at the time, and something kept touching my bun. Some people say his name is George. I just figured it was just somebody keeping me awake and keeping me alert through my shift.
Okay, was I wrong in my recollection that you were actually walking down one of the rows and an inmate actually walked through a wall?
That wasn't me. I was there at the time. It was actually a coworker, and he was on another tank. I was working the hallway, and I was responsible for allowing him in and on and off the wing. He went up to 2 row. He was doing in and outs, and he completed his in and out. All of a sudden, there was one standing over the rail or leaning over the rail, and he gave a direct order to the inmate to give him his cell number so he can put him back in. Inmate turned around and walked right into the cell, and cell doors were closed. He then came down after everything, and he told me what happened, and it was okay. And we get through it, and we just treat it as if another day at work, another day in paradise.
Okay, so you spent well over a dozen years in the jailer correctional officer career, and
Correct.
then you decide, okay, enough's enough. Let's become a Texas peace officer and get serious about doing this for a living.
Well, it didn't exactly go that well as far as the thought process, but yes, for the most part.
Okay. What was police academy like for somebody almost double the age of everybody else in there?
It actually was a wonderful experience. I went to the University of Houston downtown. I had great colleagues with me. I, being the oldest, they wanted me to be the captain of the class. I told them I had done that. I've been there, done that. And it was time for somebody else to take the reins. And all I did as the leader, as far as not being the captain, but I was a leader, was to allow certain people the positive negatives of what they were wanting. For example, I had one, she was a captain, and she was told, or she demanded, that she have, I apologize, my brain. She demanded respect. And I explained to her, respect is earned, it's not given. And as a captain, that is something you should always think about. Actions, your attitude, everything. So I was more of a guidance and a mother figure to everyone than anything else. I always made sure everybody had done their homework. Everybody was ready to go for class the next day. Everybody had their keys, their cuff key. Everybody was ready to go, because that way we wouldn't get gigged on anything in particular.
And they also helped you out a lot with the PT, the running.
They did. I did have some. I was mama. And so everybody would always check on mama. It was funny because when I first started, I was told, do not leave anybody behind. So my first day, I couldn't leave anybody behind, and I ended up in last place. And after that, it was take care of mama. So I may have come in last, but I finished. Our PT instructor, he was bound determined to make me quit, because that's his job. I can't be out there and quit. And so that was his job. And he did an excellent job, because I never quit. As I said, I may have come in last or second to last. I was always in the last part of everything, but I finished. And I finished with my head held high because I did it.
Well, anytime we go through a boot camp, they're trying to change your mindset because there's a certain requirement to be part of that clan that graduates. And so you graduated. Now you're officially a peace officer in the state of Texas, and a lot of things go along with that. But while we're still here in the life part of our show today, we were talking last night. There was something on TV. I can't remember what it was. Show we watched, and people have experiences, and maybe somebody, the guy looks like he's in the military because of the way he walks or the way he holds himself. You can almost see certain aspects of people based on what they've learned, what they've been around. I'm the oldest of 9 kids. The expectations were different than the youngest of 9 kids. But when I sit back and I look at what did I not learn, well, financial accountability was one of many things because we just were never trained in that. Relationships, who am I really looking for in life for a spouse? How do I maintain good relationships with family, friends, and coworkers, etc.? The boss relationship. So relationships is another one. Our spiritual life is a major one. There's just a lot of things out there that sometimes we're what we call morally challenged, ethically challenged, and if we have a good moral compass, those things don't enter in. It's a simple yes or no. Your thoughts, Michelle?
I agree completely. There was, and we've mentioned this, or we've discussed this before, as far as a moral compass, and this is one thing I've tried to instill in others, is that, for example, the military, especially when it comes to the Marines. I mean, I've heard it more with Marines than with Navy, but it's God, country, family, and then everything else falls after that. And that's what I try to instill, is that God is first, my country. But I never served the military, but serving in law enforcement is a form of military. It's a paramilitary establishment. And you do have to have a military type attitude working in law enforcement. And then family, because without the first two, you can't protect your family. And when I explain it in that capacity to others that are wanting to go into law enforcement, and these were jailers trying to be a law enforcement officer. He was going to the academy, and I explained it to him in that manner. He understood more of my way of thinking. He didn't fulfill what was needed, but he actually started to understand more of the demands and what your attitude and mentality should be.
Michelle, we have a commercial break coming up in about a minute, a little bit more. But PTSD is a function of the military because of the experiences that are there. But I think it's also a major function of a policeman's life because of the various aspects of life in general. Your thought?
Yes. PTSD is a factor you have to look at. There are traumas that occur in law enforcement that, unless you deal with it in a particular way, and it has that particular person's way of dealing with it. I had a coworker who shot and killed somebody. It was the first person, and he actually using his weapon in the line of duty, and he had difficulties. He had difficulty sleeping. He had difficulties with a lot of things. He found a way to cope, and that is something major. We deal with life and death in all dimensions. We have to go to houses and deal with those that are deceased, and then we have to notify families. I had one situation where I was notified by Houston PD, and I had to notify the family because he died, but she was living in San Jacinto at the time, and I had to do the death notification. So there's different aspects of different types of trauma, and you have to be able to go in and deal with those types of traumas.
Let's go ahead and take a short commercial break here, and we'll join back.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Steve Klein Art at steveklein.art.
My name is Steve Klein, born Manchester, England, 1953. My quest in my lifetime is to create artwork from my soul and the deepness within my wildest dreams and fantasies. In 2012, my heart stopped when I was given too much anesthetic for a minor knee operation, and this near-death experience took me to another multi-dimensional world, an out-of-body experience, and I was given the gift of being blessed by an overwhelming, burning passion to become, for the very first time in my life, an artist with an eternal, passionate desire to bring my art, which I've named multi-dimensional, subliminal, freeform art, to the world, as only 3% recover from what I experienced. And now in my golden years want to release my cosmic, vital energy through my art to allow people to be a part of my cosmic dance.
To learn more, email roccogoodwine@gmail.com. For VIP pricing, mention USA Global TV and Radio.
Howdy, Reverend Laughlin here on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And today is a different show than most Hooking Heads. I have my daughter, Michelle, with me today, and we're talking about life, and we're going to get into the health aspect of things here very quickly. So, Michelle, please join me again. If I remember right, one of the first days on duty as a patrol officer at San Jacinto County, I think one of your first stops was a DOA. Is that right?
Actually, it was my very first one. There was a male who overdosed, and on the way en route to the call, it was explained to me what we were going to do and what I was going to do in particular and what I was going to be responsible for. And that's how everything started. And I did everything that I was told to do. And report writing was a little different from what as far as corrections. But again, learning experience, learning curves. And we got through it. I thought that would be a problem, but you learn to disassociate to a point. What's going on? You have a job to do, and this is what you need to do. So that was my very first call as a law enforcement.
Okay, as we're growing up, we all typically have a lot of childhood diseases. My daughter was a gymnast and fell off the balance beam more than a few times because that's what gymnasts do. It's just part of the learning curve. But after she gave up being a gymnast, she started having some aches and pains. And you take her to this person and to that person, and after a while, nobody can find anything. And I think one of the last doctors saying, maybe it's psychosomatic, maybe these are really, really pains. But he suggested that maybe we see a physical therapist. And first question I believe he asked us was, how long ago was she in an automobile accident? Because her pelvis was tilted and twisted, her upper body, shoulders were twisted in the opposite direction, and she was basically kind of a big pretzel in a twirl. And I think it took 32 sessions of massage therapy in order to get everything back into place. And so even though it's a kind of, I was in gymnastics or I was in whatever, we don't expect there to be long-lasting health issues, but sometimes those things happen. What do you remember about that whole evolution?
I don't remember too much as far as the physical therapy. I do remember a lot of the falls, but I don't remember the intense physical therapy appointments, I don't really remember too much as far as, I don't recall the conversations y'all had with as far as the automobile. I
So,
do.
so next you're going to tell me you don't remember being on the beach at 4 days of age with a bunch of my Navy buddies out there because no, you don't remember 4 days
No,
of age.
no.
Yeah, you just come out of the hospital. They had been planning this party on the beach in Coronado for a long time. And so Maryland felt up to going. So you were down there on the beach 4 days. And what else? At 6 months, you're in Hawaii and you're swimming underwater quite well. So a lot of things that we didn't talk about. But
Yeah.
why don't we continue on in the health aspect of things? Because in addition to having some issues falling off the balance beam, sometimes you have two things happening at one time and a doctor can't discern that. Well, that's right, but this one no. And so you had what's called thoracic outlet syndrome and Raynaud's syndrome. And you'd been to a couple, three doctors. Nobody knew what to do. Again, is a psychosomatic. But I think mom was with you and you left the doctor's office and you actually had an episode right in front of the doctor. And
Yes.
that was enough for him to believe it wasn't psychosomatic. It was something that really and truly was real. And so as we start looking at health things, just because I can have this condition doesn't mean I can't have another one that acts up at the same time. And I think that was a perfect example of that.
Yes. My primary care physician, he actually diagnosed me with thoracic, but it was very difficult finding doctors to confirm. And that was the one time that I went to with mom downtown Houston and had the episode in front of the doctor. And that's when he said, yes, she has Raynaud's in association with thoracic outlet in association with Raynaud's. And after that, he confirmed it. I went through a lot of testing. I was in the hospital for how many days with nobody able to confirm anything. And once everything was confirmed, everything just fell into place.
I was at an event recently within the last couple of weeks, and one of the women at the table, her hands were turning blue, which is a typical sign of Raynaud's.
Yes.
And I said something, and she says, "Yeah, I have Raynaud's, and it acts up a lot in the cold weather, and I know yours did also." We
Yes.
had a brief cold spell here not long ago. But as you continue to get older, I mean, obviously we had the COVID thing, and we had other things going on. I think in my case, my mom had a gallbladder removed. Her mother had her gallbladder removed. Her grandmother had her gallbladder removed. I had mine removed. My dad had his removed the same month I had mine removed. And we've gone on. My daughter had hers. That was quite an episode because of the intensity of that one. And the symptoms are totally different. You know, her symptoms are nothing like the symptoms I had. So just because you have a malady or a disease doesn't mean that it's a simple matter of diagnosis. And ironically, my son had his bout with gallbladder removal too. So I guess we're just standing by waiting for the grandkids and maybe down the road the great grandkids, because it seems to be more on the mother's side than it does any other side. But
And they've been warned.
they've been warned. But when we get into health, it's again like relationships. We're not trained for health. It's not something unless you have an interest. I love taking my chemistry background, and that's because Marilyn, Michelle's mom, had breast cancer, and I'm in there using some knowledge I acquired decades ago. What can I do to help alleviate some of these side effects? And so I was in motivation, self-improvement. That's what I spoke about. That's what I wrote about. And then all of a sudden, about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, I switched over and started pulling my chemical understanding of things at the cellular level in the body and saying, well, what causes that? And I have been doing this for Halliburton for a number of years. We're looking at failures in the field, both overseas and in the United States. What caused that? And when you start saying, well, what caused it? Well, okay, what caused that problem? And then what caused that problem? And so you go down what we consider 7 levels of why did that happen. And when you get down to about 5, 6, 7 levels, you probably what they call the root cause. And so if you know a root cause, that's what you work on. And so each one of those root causes causes something. Okay, let's fix those. And if you fix those, the things above that don't happen. And so as we're looking at things and we are learning about our health, because you really don't pay attention to your health until you literally become a grandmother or your kids are empty nesting you, and all of a sudden now you're looking at your parents' health. So what did you learn about health, and what's been important to you as a grandma?
What I've learned through health was, well, our discussions, we have our private talks, and then reading, following up. And if there's something that I would suggest is go the all natural route rather than all the drugs that are prescribed out there. And to me, in the long run, that'll help you out. As far as being the grandma and grandmas to be, exactly the same thing. Just follow up. I mean, if you may hear something about D3 and you need to be outside because that's a natural supplement for the D3, I mean, you should still take D3 because that's just a healthier way of dealing with things. But you want to be there for your grandkids, and you want to teach them, and you want to see them grow, just as you mentioned earlier in the program. That is one of the delights of watching my grandson grow and explore, and you see the light, so to speak, in his eyes when he learns something new. And it's the same thing for all of us. We all have that spark when we learn something new and it fascinates us. And I would highly encourage everybody to do that.
My daughter sends me texts with videos that she's found on some aspect of health or something that relates to it from an exercise perspective or a mental health issue or whatever else. And literally almost every single one of them have some natural application that they're trying to say, do this, and it works fairly well. And the vitamin D3 is one that it's the only hormone, actually it's a pro-hormone, but it's the only hormone our bodies make. And we do everything in our power to prevent getting sunshine. And then we don't take it as a supplement. And if we do take it as a supplement, we take it in such small amounts that it's almost unrecognizable. I take, generally speaking, in the wintertime, about 20,000 I use a day. Summertime, about 10,000 because I'm outside. But the UV light is beneficial from us. I'm not talking about from causing skin cancer and sunburn and other things. But there's a certain pathway that our melatonin is formed by the UV rays, but also the infrared rays actually makes actually the IR makes the melatonin. The vitamin 3 ends up in a different path, and we end up with the actual vitamin D3 that our body makes and uses and goes through our liver and our kidneys and stuff. But when I'm looking at now, something that's super important to me is the mitochondrial level in the body. And so if I can keep my cellular level healthy through mitochondrial feeding, which is that melatonin from infrared from the sun, then I have a natural source of keeping that aligned properly. The other one to me is super important is autophagy, and that's the body's system to clean the cells, recycle everything, basically give you a new immune system, everything back, not necessarily pristine, but you start improving your production of stem cells and a bunch of other things. And that's through fasting. And it's one of those things I adopted several years ago. I try to be on a 72-hour fast or longer every month. Haven't quite got my daughter on 72 hours yet, or my wife.
No, not yet.
But it's something that they're aware of. And that's the first part of anything we do is awareness. Once you're aware of it, you do your own research. And okay, maybe maybe I'll do a 20-hour fast. Maybe I'll do a 30-hour fast. But it becomes the basis for additional education. And I think that's critical for any aspect of health. We just went through a pandemic. Lots of things out there that people didn't make it through because their health wasn't good enough. I had COVID twice. I think my daughter had it twice. My wife had it twice. We got through it. I've had all sorts of, I think I filled up 3 yellow books of stuff from traveling, all the travel I did in the military with shots and immunizations and vaccines and all sorts of stuff. Even the last week or two before I got out of the military, I was on a bunch of stuff just because the military required it. But when I was doing my research on COVID and I wrote about it, I said, I'm going to give this thing 8 months and then I'll make my decision. Well, 8 months minus 1 day, I came down with COVID. So my chance to decide on a vaccine and whether I was going to get it or not never came to fruition because the disease passed it on to me. But it is what it is. So any thoughts on COVID or anything else in that general field?
As far as COVID, no. As far as the general health, there's just always follow up, and I'm guilty of it myself. One thing that I did was I invest in massage therapy. You can go to different types of massage outlets, and I have invested in one. My problem is the follow up, and for example, law enforcement officers, we have to wear a vest. And those vests can be 20 to 30 pounds, depending on the vest. And again, that can knock you for a loop when you're not used to it. And it can certainly tie up as far as your muscles and everything else. And it's just, you have to keep up with your health. And I have failed many times on that, but I am a workaholic too, and I'll be the first one to admit I'm a workaholic.
Well, one of the problems my daughter had was headaches, and there's only so far you can go with headaches with stress management and other things. And this was years ago, and okay, fine, let's go ahead and get a massage and see if it's a muscular related thing. Well, she got a massage. Whoa, headache's gone. And so now, as she's talking about your weighing down, just as in the military, you got a rucksack of 80 pounds in your back or whatever, or you're in a situation where your body is being abused one way, shape, or other, and you're not taking time to fix it through normal processes. Maybe even though a massage feels good, maybe it's the therapeutic value that you need to get your body back into stability. I remember having this little thumb sticking out of my back for years. I know exactly when it happened. I was working on a car and I pulled too hard. But I went through countless military flight physicals, and nobody ever said anything. I went to a physical therapist, and it was one of my backbone muscles had actually turned out, and that was the tip end of the backbone muscle. And he fixed that literally in less than 5 minutes. But he recognized it for what it was, took an x-ray, proved that that's what it was, fixed it, and then we went through a program to make sure it didn't recur. So, Michelle, we're getting ready to wrap up the show here in about a minute. Do you have 10 or 15 seconds or anything you want to pass on your first TV show?
Just never, you're never too old to learn. You're never too old to give up on your dreams. And there's that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I prove, yes, you can. So other than that.
And as the dogs get older, we just enjoy life.
That's right.
Well, Michelle, thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. And truly, I know it's a busy schedule because I control most of it, it seems like. So with that, I'm going to almost trying to stop that phrase. This is the end of our show on Talking Heads this week. Please join us next week, 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Again, Red O'Laughlin checking out. Bye now.
Meet Red O'Loughlin, TV show host, presenter, and author.
Howdy y'all, Red O'Loughlin here. I'm a TV host on the USA Global TV and Radio Network.
Red has 3 weekly shows every Thursday.
I've been a TV host now with USA Global probably maybe just a little over 3 years. Probably, I know for sure, 250, 300 shows.
Join Red on the Corner Bookstore.
The Corner Bookstore is one where we talk to authors, publicists, publishers, editors, cover designers, anybody associated with the writing and authoring book production business. You have somebody in that area, I can help you with regard to getting your book done, getting it published, working with you on a cover. A lot of things I can help people with, and I have probably maybe published over 40 books for people so far.
Join Red on The Wise Ones.
On the Wise Ones, I'm looking for entrepreneurs, business owners, people who have wisdom, lessons learned over time that they can share with others. So please go to usaglobaltv.com, sign up and join me there.
Book your session on usaglobaltv.com. Join Red on Talking Heads.
On Talking Heads, I take my experience. I fell in love with chemistry many years ago, got a degree in it, got an invitation to Vietnam, never practiced chemistry per se, but I did get a chance when my wife was going through chemo to get back into the chemical end of things. I started looking for cause and effect relationships. I had been working at a company doing cause and effect analysis on failures in the field on various products that we made. So I said, why not look at the cellular structure in the body? The chemicals are chemicals. They do certain things. So I take my knowledge of chemistry and research. I write about it. I speak about it. I have over 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn, most of them dealing with some aspect of health or wellness. I speak on that topic quite often, and the Talking Head Show is one that I concentrate my knowledge of health and wellness on in order to help people.
Red is a distinguished Toastmaster.
As a distinguished Toastmaster, I help people get their speeches developed. The presentation is something that I critique all the time with Toastmasters. It's one of those skills that I have. I can easily help you on that one. So from the position of writing, publishing, book coach, speaking, and being a keynote speaker at an event or virtually, depending on how things work out. But those are the things that I can help people with, and I have 3 shows every week here on the USA Global TV and Network, and please join me when you can. Appreciate it. Bye now.
Here are some of the books that Red has written and published. Contact Red at redolaughlin.com.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.